Hello and welcome. This is Notibot Yenji. In the past 24 hours, tensions between Iran and the US have escalated to a boiling point. A proposed 15-point peace plan has been met with defiance, and attacks on Israel and Gulf states have increased. We'll break down the latest developments, what's known and unknown about the Iran war negotiations, and explore the deeper implications of US financial dominance. We'll also examine Tehran's warning to confiscate property of Iranians abroad who back US strikes. Let's dive into the latest news. A growing escalation in the Middle East has led to a dramatic rejection of a proposed peace plan by Iranian leaders, sparking renewed tensions. Iran has rejected a 15-point plan proposed by the United States aimed at de-escalating tensions in the region. The plan, which was submitted by U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken last week, outlined a series of steps to reduce violence and increase diplomacy between the U.S. and Iran. However, Iran's foreign ministry said on Tuesday that it would not accept the plan, citing its own conditions for dialogue. The U.S. plan includes measures such as the release of Iranian prisoners, the lifting of sanctions on Tehran, and the normalization of relations between the two countries. However, Iran's hardline government has refused to back down, insisting that any deal must be based on its own terms. The rejection of the U.S. plan comes as tensions between Iran and Israel have escalated, with both countries exchanging rocket fire and missile strikes. The conflict has drawn in other regional powers, including Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, which have expressed concerns about Iran's growing influence in the region. The situation is complex and volatile, with both the U.S. and Iran holding significant military power in the region. The escalation of tensions has raised concerns about the potential for a wider conflict, with the Middle East being a particularly sensitive region. The rejection of the U.S. plan has also cast a shadow over the prospects for a resolution to the conflict, highlighting the challenges of finding a peaceful solution in the region. As we continue to follow the unfolding crisis in the Middle East, a key question remains unanswered. What are the true intentions behind Iran's war negotiations? I'm joined now by our European affairs correspondent, who's been following the latest developments in the Iran war negotiations. The United States and Iran have been engaging in a tense standoff over the past few days, with both sides trading verbal blows in a series of diplomatic exchanges. According to sources, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken held a phone call with his Iranian counterpart, Hossein Amir-Abdollahian, on Tuesday. The call was reportedly tense, with both sides exchanging accusations over U.S. sanctions and Iran's nuclear program. Iran has been accused of carrying out a series of missile tests in recent days, which have raised concerns among Western powers. The U.S. has warned Iran that it will take military action if it continues to breach the terms of a 2015 nuclear deal. The talks between the U.S. and Iran come as the region remains on high alert, following a series of attacks on U.S. and Israeli targets. The U.S. has blamed Iran for the attacks, which have sparked a new wave of tensions in the region. The implications of the Iran crisis are far-reaching, with the potential for a wider conflict in the Middle East. The European Union has called for restraint and diplomacy, with EU Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell urging both sides to engage in calm and constructive dialogue. As the situation in Iran continues to unfold, it's clear that the world is holding its breath, waiting to see what the next move will be. The U.S. and Iran's talks are being closely watched, with many wondering what the outcome will be and what it will mean for global stability. As tensions escalate in the Middle East, a broader global concern emerges: the uncharted risks of the U.S. dollar's unchallenged financial supremacy. The recent escalation of tensions between the U.S. and Iran has sent shockwaves through global markets, exposing deeper risks to U.S. financial dominance. The conflict, which began with a U.S. drone strike killing a top Iranian military commander, has rapidly escalated into a full-blown war. Iranian missile strikes on U.S. military bases in Iraq and Syria, followed by U.S. retaliatory strikes, have raised concerns about the stability of the region. The U.S. has claimed that its military action was a response to Iranian aggression, but critics argue that the move was a reckless and destabilizing act that could lead to a wider conflict. The involvement of Israel, a close ally of the U.S., has further complicated the situation. What's at stake is not just the fate of the region, but also the global economy. The Strait of Hormuz, a critical artery for global oil and liquefied natural gas, remains a key point of contention. Disruption to the strait could have a devastating impact on the global economy. driving up inflation expectations and currency volatility. The US dollar, which has long been seen as a safe haven currency, is now coming under pressure as investors begin to question the reliability of US policy. This development matters for investors around the world, as it exposes a growing uncertainty about the consistency of US policy under President Donald Trump. For decades, geopolitical crises have reinforced American financial dominance, but the fluid and unpredictable nature of the current conflict is creating new risks. Markets are not just assessing the immediate impact of the conflict, but also the broader framework guiding US policy and finding it elusive. Iran's government is escalating its warnings, threatening severe consequences for Iranians living abroad who have voiced support for US strikes against the country. Tehran's warning to Iranians abroad. Tehran has issued a warning to Iranian nationals living abroad who assist or support the United States and Israel in their war with Iran. The warning, issued by the Prosecutor General's office, states that those who sympathize, support, or cooperate with the American Zionist enemy will have their properties confiscated and face legal penalties. This move comes after the death of Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, at the hands of US and Israeli strikes. The Iranian diaspora has been celebrating Khamenei's death in various cities across the US and abroad, in stark contrast to the 40-day mourning period declared by the Iranian regime. However, these celebrations have been met with criticism from some in the Iranian community, who argue that they are undermining the regime's official mourning period. The warning from Tehran is significant, as it signals an intention to continue the hardline regime that has been in place since the 1979 Islamic Revolution. The new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, will wield significant power behind the scenes, and this move is likely an attempt to assert control and maintain the status quo. The implications of this move are far-reaching, particularly for Iranian nationals living abroad. They will need to be aware of the risks of cooperating with the US and Israel, and the consequences of having their properties confiscated. This warning also highlights the deep divisions within the Iranian community, with some celebrating Khamenei's death and others condemning the celebrations. The situation remains volatile, and it will be crucial to monitor the developments in the coming days. The United States is facing growing skepticism over its proposed 15-point peace plan, with many in Iran labeling its demands as unacceptable to the negotiating table. Good evening, I'm Philip Tull. The United States has sent a 15-point peace plan to Iran, but Tehran has rejected it as excessive. The U.S. proposal is seen as a major escalation in the ongoing tensions between the two nations. The plan, which includes key demands such as sanction relief and a rollback of Iran's nuclear program, is reportedly being closely reviewed by Iranian officials. The U.S. has been pushing for a comprehensive peace deal with Iran, which would address a range of issues including its nuclear program, regional security, and ballistic missile development. The plan, which was announced by U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, is seen as a major step forward in the negotiations. Iran's reaction to the U.S. proposal has been swift and decisive. In a statement, Iranian Foreign Minister Hossein Amir-Abdollahian described the plan as unacceptable and said that Iran would not accept any conditions that would undermine its sovereignty. The Iranian government has also warned that it would retaliate against any U.S. or coalition forces in the region if they were to take military action against Iran. The U.S.-Iran tensions have been escalating in recent months, with the U.S. imposing new sanctions on Iranian companies and officials. The situation is highly volatile, and any miscalculation could lead to a major conflict. We'll continue to follow this story and bring you updates as more information becomes available. As tensions between Iran and the U.S. continue to simmer, diplomatic efforts to ease the conflict are gaining momentum, according to officials. Iran's skepticism towards the U.S.-led negotiations has led to the involvement of U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance, as Washington seeks to reassure Tehran that the talks are genuine. The U.S. administration has presented Iran with a 15-point proposal, which includes the dismantling of its nuclear program, a complete halt to uranium enrichment, and limits on ballistic missile range. In return, Iran would receive full sanctions relief, including the removal of the UN Security Council's snapback mechanism. The proposal has been met with Iranian resistance, with Tehran demanding compensation for the war, guarantees against future attacks, the dismantling of U.S. military bases in the Gulf, and a halt to Israeli strikes on Hezbollah in Lebanon. Iranian officials have expressed concerns that the U.S. is using the negotiations as a ploy to weaken its archrival, rather than a genuine attempt to reach a meaningful agreement. The situation is complex, with multiple parties involved. The U.S. administration is keen to resolve the conflict with Iran, while Tehran is seeking to protect its interests in the region. The Israeli government, which has long been a rival of Iran, has also expressed concerns about the proposal. The involvement of U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance has added a new layer of complexity to the negotiations, as Washington seeks to reassure Tehran that the talks are genuine. The outcome of the negotiations is uncertain, but the stakes are high. The conflict between the U.S. and Iran has the potential to escalate into a wider war, with significant implications for regional and global security. As the negotiations reach their climax, it remains to be seen whether a meaningful agreement can be reached. In conclusion, the ongoing tensions between Iran and the U.S. have reached a critical point. We'll continue to bring you updates as more information becomes available. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to stay informed on this developing story, please subscribe to our channel for the latest news and analysis. We'll be back with more news after this break.